Hi folks, you're with Tacitus today, your pushback channel. Thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to revisit the 2020 presidential election, which and YouTube reversing their policy. I wonder what that's all about. Is all the evidence now trashed and hidden and destroyed? Is YouTube decided to become a paragon of free speech? Are they wanting to flush out all the people that may be, online people that'll criticise the next election? So 2024, they've already got the rigging machinery in place, so they want to identify the voices that may speak out against the election, identify them now so they can all be silenced in advance. And makes you wonder what their rationale is. I assume that they've got some plan in mind, given how closely the globalists control public service and Democrat Party goons and hacks, how closely they try and work with the social media platforms to shut down any discussions that they don't approve of, and the lengths they went to shut down discussion about the 2020 election, I think confirms, at least in my view, that its legitimacy is very much in question. What they should have done is go, no, okay, it was a free and fair election, and we're going to prove it to you. We're going to show you. And there should have been open discussion where it was proven beyond any sort of reasonable doubt that it was a free and fair election. That they did not do that they did not make an effort to show and demonstrate that it was free and fair is, to me, a complete confirmation that it was a rigged outcome. But apart from just you feel it in your gut type thing, apart from that, I'm very much in favour of free and fair. I think as soon as you get away from the will of the people being expressed, then you're on a short route to disaster. I should sort of add here that the view that many of the elites have, particularly the Jewish elites, the view they have is that any expression of the will of the people is just one step away from Hitler. So they see the will of the people, the popular vote, whether it's done as simple majority, whether it's done in a Republican or proportional representation, however it's done, they perceive that it's Hitler's only around the corner from that, and it's always been something they've been the Jewish, again, particularly the Jewish elites, it's always something they've been concerned about. Whereas if you have top-down control of what people are allowed to do, allowed to think, and take away individual rights and liberties, then you can control that society, and therefore Hitler can never appear. Instead, you get Stalin or Mao. Now, interestingly, to the Jewish elites, Stalin and Mao, even though they killed many more people than Hitler ever did, according to these Jewish elites, that's preferable. Tens of millions, hundreds of millions dying is preferable to what happened in Germany. And I should add that the number of Jews in Germany in 1933, when Hitler became Chancellor of the government there, Prime Minister of the government, when it was, I think there were something in the order of 400,000 Jews in all of Germany. Bear in mind, the population of Germany was nearly 80 million at the time. So that we're looking at less than 0.5%, really, of the population was Jewish. And if you throw in the homosexuals and the gypsies and the other people that the Jews that the Nazis were persecuting, then it's still less than 1% of the population. Very different today in the West, where it's the white majority that's being persecuted. Contemplate that, if you will. But coming back to the election, now on election night, I remember watching, I'm in a different time zone, I was in Australia at the time, watching the election. It seemed Trump was going to comfortably sort of win the presidency or be re-elected. And but he was he put in rather an impressive show, I thought, in terms of votes. I think it was I think Trump increased his vote by 14% from the 2016 level. So now this is remarkable, a stunning achievement, given the entire media establishment, much of the political establishment, including in his own party, for fuck's sake, was against him and was taking shots at him at every opportunity. And the media could not have been more unflattering in their representation of President Trump and his, the rallies and speeches he was giving and that sort of thing. The reverse was the case with Biden. They could not have been more flattering of Biden. Now, I remember seeing footage of Biden and his mumbling and bumbling his way through the very few prepared speeches that he had to make, and he didn't do it. I mean, he couldn't have attracted a crowd at all. And how edited the media edited out nearly all of that. So I'd seen so many of these vids that when Biden did that presidential debate, I thought Biden would just fall to pieces. He got handled softly and gently, I thought, and I thought Trump could have gone in for the kill on a few things that he didn't, and that surprised me. But I don't know what they injected Biden with to get him to last through that. But I was staggered. I mean, he didn't do well, but the fact that he managed to slur not too much of it was an achievement, and I was surprised by that. But I must have been jabbing his ass with needles all day to get him to last through that. Anyway, when we look at the election numbers, Trump looked like he was going to cruise comfortably in, and he not many times do you get that much of an improvement from a first term to a second term. Again, we're looking at a 14% increase in the amount of votes that he was getting. And given that everything was against him, that's a stunning achievement. And I think he went from 63, 64, I think it was to somewhere around 73 million votes, assuming those are accurate. And I'm doubtful on that. But coming to the Biden vote, now we've got a candidate who can barely speak, who doesn't campaign, who's so curated and controlled that you really don't see much of him. So anybody with that much of a low profile election campaign doesn't do very well. You look at, say, John McCain up against Obama and that sort of thing. McCain got what, 50 million something votes. He was an unimpressive, in my view, an unimpressive candidate, and Obama was given the rock star treatment by the media and the globalist establishment. So you'd expect to see a disparity along the lines that took place. Obama handsomely beating McCain with, I think it was like a 10 plus million vote margin. So I would have expected something similar with Trump and Biden. Biden was an unimpressive candidate with no real sort of policies articulated. It was all sort of vague stuff. And so when the vote was counting, I thought that Trump would win. And say up until fairly late in the evening, it appeared Trump was going to win. Maybe not in a landslide, but certainly pretty good. He was going to get quite a few more electoral college votes than Biden. Now then the counting stopped, and it was strange that there's in every state where it was going to be a tight race or like a swing state, there seemed to be particular problems in those states. Now, if there were problems, they'd have sort of been all over the place. They wouldn't be confined to the states and electoral districts that whoever's going to win would have to win. So straight away you're looking at, well, gee, that seems a bit odd. The spread of problems seems to be concentrated in areas where one side or the other sort of has to win. The Democrats are really going to have to win those states. There's no point where you win California anyway and you win it by a margin of a gazillion votes. Who cares? You won it anyway. So it's those swing states are important, and that seemed to be where the problems were. So, and having a look at the vote spread, where the postal votes, the postal ballots, the drop boxes, and the vote harvesting practices in the states, because the vote harvesting differs. Some states it's illegal, others it can only be a family member, and in another it can only be a certain number of votes, 3 or whatever. So it's quite a bit of variance. It's not that easy to track it all down. But having a look at some of them, and in the areas that had the most unrestricted vote harvesting, they recorded very unusually high Democrat votes or votes for Biden. Now that's straight away suspicious. So if I was an electoral officer, or looking at election integrity, I'd be all over something like that. The other thing was the votes being delivered late at night. Now that's not how it's done. You don't do that. This is a very, very sober, very important. Everything must be above board and seen to be above board. So you don't deliver votes at 3 a.m. when there's nobody there except one Democrat political operative. You don't do that. You bring it in daylight in the morning while everyone's there, the electoral officers there, the scrutineers are there from both parties or all the parties involved. That's where you deliver it. It's soberly signed over. Pick these votes up from here. Here's the signature. Here's the proof. Here's the chain of custody. Here it is. And then the votes can be counted in the case of postal ballots, and the signature matching, and all these things can go on, but it needs to be above board. But that wasn't done, and I don't know why it wasn't done. I don't know why you'd want to deliver votes at 2 or 3 in the morning. Why would you want to do that? Wouldn't you want to have all the officials there and have it absolutely recorded and be totally above board? Wouldn't that be your first priority? Why would you bring it that time of night when all the Republican scrutineers have gone and there's only or where votes were delivered where there were only Democrat counters and Democrat operatives there, and there were no Republicans? So why would you want to do that? You would like, if you were in an elections office, you'd say, well, don't count any, don't do anything, don't bring it up. Wait until everybody's there and everybody can see it. Now, I've been involved in Australian elections previously as sort of an assistant or deputy scrutineer, I don't think any official sort of title exists, but the idea is that everything must be seen to be above board and be above board. So if there's disputed votes, disputed in whatever sense, there has to be the election officer there, typically an observer for the election officer. Then there's the scrutineers from all the political parties that are having votes cast in that district, and they all have to agree that these votes are legitimate or illegitimate, or they're acceptable or not acceptable. This sort of thing. There can be a majority and a casting vote, and these sorts of things can go on. And a lot of the disputes, by the way, the tick in the box for the candidate isn't fully in the box. It's kind of a few microns out. So some of the levels of dispute can be down to that, which are. But there has to be this above board thing, and those practices were not followed. They were not followed in that election, and I don't know why. And I don't know why those things weren't investigated. Now, when you look at those areas where those sort of things were happening, where mysterious deliveries at night, exceptionally high levels of ballot, where the number of votes cast were in excess of the voters registered, these sorts of anomalies, and you add those amount of votes up, or the drop box votes, harvested votes, and you add those up, all those sort of things, and put them together. Now, not all of them would be illegitimate, by the way, but it comes to almost 20 million. That's the amount of votes that are in question. 20 million votes, in my view, slightly over, but on or about 20 million. Now, maybe they all were for Biden. Maybe they all were for Trump. Maybe they were for I don't know, Mickey Mouse or something, but that doesn't matter. That should be screwed. It should be absolutely gone through in fine detail. And the fact that nobody wanted to do it, and that there was huge pushback and resistance to doing and auditing those things and going through it slowly and meticulously, because there was so much opposition to it, and all sorts of interference being run, then we don't know. And the not knowing is as bad as believing that the outcome was rigged. And given there was so much pushback against doing a proper audit, and given that the media were in complete shutdown, I mean, so the minute that the first time there was questions raised about the legitimacy of the election, I'm not letting these Nazis spread these misinformation stories. The Nazi got beaten fair and square, but oh, no, give me a fucking break. So they straight away they were accusing anyone that questioned it of being a Nazi. And again, that's another giveaway. You don't have to call people names. You can just say, no, it was fair. Let's have an audit. Let's say, say this concluded. Let's make sure that all the scrutineers are there from the parties and independent scrutineers. Let's make sure that's done, and let's prove to the people that it's completely legitimate. But that was never done. And if you did, or anyone who's concerned about election integrity would have done that. That is something they would have done. Certainly, I'd do that. So we're looking at 20 million votes in question. And of those 20 million votes in question, over 90% of them just happened to go for Biden. Now, that's astonishing. You don't get that sort of spread, not over that many states and places. You can get things like 55 to 45, 52 to 48%. You can get that sort of spread. If it's a super Democrat area, you can get more than that, like Washington, D.C. There's not many areas that are like that. So across places like Georgia and elsewhere, you won't get anywhere near 90-10 or 95-5. You won't get anywhere near that. It would be, in the low 50s to the high 40s. Now, if you look at the amount of votes that Trump had sort of as the counting stopped, then you look at the, say, even a 55-45 spread or 52-48 or something like that, which would be closer to some sort of reality, assuming that even was in Biden's favor, which I would doubt, then Trump would still win quite handsomely. So you're looking at something in the region of 20 million votes that was curated into existence. Now, how that was achieved, whether it's because the broken chain of custody or multiple broken chains of custody, mysterious vote deliveries at night, signature matching wasn't done properly, other strange things like 10 or 12,000 voters registered in one address, 99% of whom voted for Biden, things like that. You'd go through all that very, very carefully. And just spot checks that various groups have done in spot checking voter registration for mail-in ballots to find that the addresses didn't exist. Now, if you look at, say, in one electoral district and you're looking at just a few thousand votes there, then you count that across the whole state, across all electoral districts, then you can easily find 20, 30,000 votes doing that. And in I think 3 states, the margin of vote difference was less, 30,000 or less. And if those states had gone to Trump, Trump would have been the president, and so on. So, but these things all should be nailed down. Now, I think we just need to sort of, if you look at the amount of effort, not only in 2016, but certainly in 2020, that the globalist controlled media and public service and all the universities and so on, the lengths they went to try and make sure, affect the outcome of the election, including shutting down media stories like the Hunter Biden laptop and so on, the lengths they went to, then it's not much of a leap to get them to believe that they also put the same amount of effort into rigging the election outcome. Remember, they can't beat Trump on policies and things like that. Nothing to say, well, he's a populist, therefore he's Hitler. So, they can play all that sort of game, but the reality is they can't beat Trump on appeal to the people or on the policy front. So they can't beat him by loading the media. They can't beat him by harassing him in all sorts of other ways. They can only win by rigging the election. And I think they came to that view. There's no other way we can beat this guy. We have to do this. If we don't do it, the globalist project will be in jeopardy. It'll set us back a decade. And they sat around the table and thought, no, we can't have that sort of delay to the project. We can't, that the people are going to, will find alternatives. Someone else will come along and they'll persuade the public the globalist project is no good. Is that so? No, we can't let Trump win. It is too much of a threat. It is a direct threat to the globalist project. We cannot let Trump win, and we can't beat Trump. So therefore, we have to rig the outcome. I'm convinced that happened. Now, the extent of it may be in question. But even now, the authorities could easily clear this up and say, look, there is a lot of questions about the 2020 election. We're going to go back over it forensically. We can have a completely independent audit, completely independent, apolitical, completely independent audit to forensically go over the election, the 2020 presidential election, to go over it and prove to the people that it's all above board. Now, there are a few dumb things. Some people refer to, well, look at the recounts they did in Georgia. Now, to the Republican sort of situation there, it was very hostile to Trump. And if you listen to the phone conversation that I think Trump's office had with what's his face, Brad Raffensperger, I think it was quite clear that he came to the call determined in my view to undermine and frustrate any attempt by the Trump team to do a forensic audit of the election. Now, what they did is they just recounted the votes, as in the mail-in ballots that weren't signature matched, the curated votes, the harvested votes, where there was no legal trail of determining their validity, and there was no checking on the spot checking of addresses from these postal ballots. That sort of thing. They didn't do any of those sort of forensic type checks and just recounted the already corrupted and contaminated votes. And say, there, see, same outcome. See, we did it. Look, we checked. Well, that's bullshit. That's bullshit. You check the contaminated, corrupt votes and recount the same corrupt votes, and you get the same outcome, and then pat yourself on the back for being thorough. What a load of bullshit. So these sorts of things weren't done either, and they should be done. And anyone that wants to get up and say, let's forensically go over that 2020 election, and let's show the people that it was completely above board, I don't believe they can do that. I don't believe it's possible. I don't believe that a senile old man that could barely string a sentence together and who didn't campaign at all could have won the highest amount of votes ever in the history of presidential elections. I do not believe that's possible. And that's sort of, before you get to any other details, that's concern number one. And again, if he'd been out there talking about policies, he'd been campaigning his ass off all across the United States, pulling massive crowds, you maybe go, oh, gee, you did really, I'm surprised you beat Obama by that. But remember he got 10 million more than 10 million votes, more than Obama, rock star Obama in his first term. Now, that's all close to impossible. So my view is that there's no doubt that the election was severely compromised, but I'm open to being convinced by forensic audit to prove that it was. And I think if they get away with that, and they got away with a lot of shenanigans in the Arizona state governor's election recently, they're emboldened by this to think, well, we can get away with it again. And anyone that complains about it, we'll shut them down and accuse them of being fucking Hitler. You've been with Tacitus today in your Pushback channel, and thank you for listening.